Welcome to the Green Room. I'm your host, Jeff Faragher, music and artistic director of our Symphony of the Kootenays. Today we're going to be talking about what it's like to come to the Symphony from different perspectives. Whether it's a player who doesn't perform classical music for their career, or a student who's juggling studies as well as performing, or a musician with a passion for performing non-classical styles, it takes a lot to be a part of a symphony. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors, BC Arts Council, as well as Columbia Basin Trust, and all the amazing organizations that support live music in the Kootenays. We also want to thank you, our audience, for supporting us both on and off the stage. Don't forget to hit that like button below, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the Symphony of the Kootenays YouTube channel to stay up to date with all of our content. We have 3 more amazing Kootenay local players tonight, and you can have the chance to speak with them, ask them questions, and be a part of the conversation over in our Zoom chat immediately following the live premiere of this show tonight only, May 8th at 7:15 Pacific, 8:15 Mountain. Just click that Zoom link in the description below to be a part of this unique opportunity. Now on to the conversation. We're joined today by Sophia Smith, one of our cellists from Creston. Hi, Sophia. Welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
We also have joining us Brie Hurlbert, one of our violinists who come from the Kootenays as well. Hi, Brie.
Hi, Jeff.
And finally, we have Megan Bibby, who is one of our past student violinists who is now studying at UVic in music. Hi, Megan. How are you doing?
Hi, Jeff.
Well, it's great to have all 3 of you here, and I'm just curious to know how this past year has impacted each of you. Brie, what's your year been like as a violin teacher and performer in the Kootenays?
Well, I have done a lot of teaching. I spent a good portion of last year teaching only on video chat, and that was the first time I'd ever really had to use a computer effectively. So it was a really interesting curve for me. I have been really lucky to sort of have sustained through this, but there has not been very much gigging or playing. I've done a little bit, like I've done a little bit with you.
That's right. It's been definitely a year of adapting and learning for students and performers alike. How about for you, Sophia? Have you been able to do much musically during this past year?
No, like you say, it's been a little crazy, and the last time I actually performed was with Symphony of the Kootenays, and then we were locked down for a full 2 months here with our chiropractic clinic. During that time, I was actually it was actually kind of blissful. I was able to play cello every day during that lockdown. But no performances or collaborations or anything like that.
How about for you, Megan? Now you've been at school this past year, I presume, and that of course has different demands, and I'm sure that's been a very different kind of a year at school for you. What's that been like?
It's been really good. At UVic, most things stayed the same, apart from like the online classes that we've been doing. This semester, orchestra was arranged to be in person with a lot of space between all the players and everyone split into 2 mini orchestras. I personally have really liked the practice time.
That's right. So you've just been able to sort of focus in on your craft a little bit more as well this year.
Yeah.
That's a great way to treat this sort of imposed situation. So we're going to kick off our show with a little bit of music. And Megan, what are we about to hear?
We're starting off with the first movement of Haydn's London Trio.
Here we go. So, Sophia, you've been playing with the orchestra for several years. Many of our audience members and, of course, our musicians recognize your face well. But maybe for those of the listeners that don't know more about you, do you want to share with us your musical background? What sort of training and you've had in music, and how you came to be playing the cello with the symphony?
Well, growing up, I played piano. I studied piano for years, many years. And although I always carried a love for the cello, I never had an opportunity, or an opportunity never came my way to actually study cello. But I always had this love of it deep inside. And so as an adult, a patient of mine was telling me a story about how he had found a cello at a pawn shop in Kelowna and was restoring it, and was starting to take lessons. And this was here in Creston. And so I said, well, when are you going to invite me over to try your cello? And he said, well, come on over on Saturday night. And so I did. And as soon as I drew the bow across the strings, it was a must for me. It wasn't just, this is kind of cool. This was, I must learn how to play this instrument. And so, so as it turned out, his teacher at the time was Amanda Anderson, Creston local, and she was willing to take me on as a student. So this was in 1999, December 1999. And when it turned out she was abandoning me to go further her studies at university, she was able to find a teacher for me who also she met through Symphony of the Kootenays, and that was Kirill Kolmakov. But it worked out. I would go about once a month, and we'd have like this marathon day-long session of learning. And every month I would go back, and that's how I learned. And so Symphony of the Kootenays came about for me. One year I had entered the Creston Festival of the Arts, and it happened to be Wendy Herbison who was adjudicating strings that year. A little while after the festival, there was a voicemail on my phone asking if there might be any chance I would consider ever playing with the Symphony of the Kootenays in the cello section, because at that time they were short. You were the head of the section at that time, and so she gave me your phone number. So I sat with it for a while, and then thought, you know what, I have to give this a try, because if I don't, I might regret it forever. And so yeah, I phoned you. Somehow we got in contact. I ended up giving it a whirl, and I've been there ever since. And so that was 2009.
Wow. So between 1999 and 2009, 10 years as an adult learner, of course, with lots of music in your background, but still picking up a cello, and in 10 years being able to play at a level that's really impressive. You know, and I think it does speak to the good leadership you've had in your teachers. But obviously there was something there that was just bubbling under the surface probably for a long time. So of course, music's always been a big part of your life, but of course it hasn't been your profession. Do you want to share with us a little bit about what you do when you're not playing the cello?
As a profession, I am a chiropractor, and so my husband is as well. And we've been here in Creston for 25 years, and so it's been pretty amazing for us. We live in what we feel is the best place in the universe. We've got mountains, trees, and water, and those are all the other things we love to do. There's the outdoors is a huge part of our life. I love to road, cycle, and backcountry ski, and just be at the lake. Creston has been a place for us to really create a work-life balance.
Creston has a pretty vibrant music scene, especially for the size of town that it is. And how do you see the Symphony of the Kootenays sort of relationship with Creston? Of course, we're based in Cranbrook, which is pretty close nearby. Mm-hmm. And we do try to come to Creston as often as possible. Usually it's about once every 2 years. What's your perception of how the community sees the orchestra, and sort of what value does the orchestra bring to the community?
Well, I can tell you without a doubt that Creston loves the Symphony of the Kootenays. They embrace the symphony. They turn out basically full house anytime the symphony is in Creston. And there's always positive feedback from members of the community about that. And there's actually also, I would say, some loyal supporters who travel when the symphony is not in Creston. They travel to Cranbrook or Nelson or Trail to catch those performances. So there's a pretty loyal and enthusiastic support from the community.
Pretty fantastic. Well,
Yeah,
you've got a non-live piece that you've prepared for us. Do you want to tell our audience what we're about to hear?
Okay, so yeah, I chose a piece called Resta con me. It's Italian, and I believe translates to Stay With Me. It's by an Italian modern day composer, Ludovico Einaudi. And I chose this piece because during this year, it's been just crazy. And I found myself musically really craving songs of comfort. And so I find this piece, the piano part is very beautifully moving, and the cello line, as simple as it is, provides a really calm grounding force. Audrey Johnson, who is on piano, is someone who I met many years ago, and we played together when she was in Creston. So much repertoire together. And we last played this about a year and a half ago. We had met in person, and again, just found it calming, and it's just like any stress of the day just melts away with these sounds. And so I thought this would be appropriate to play for tonight.
That was wonderful. Now we're going to talk with Brie Hurlbert. How are you doing, Brie?
I'm doing well, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to see you again. So you want to just maybe tell our audience a little bit about your life growing up here as a musician and what your musical background is?
Yeah. So I actually grew up as a very small child in Edgewood, which is a very, very tiny town here in the West Kootenays. We did have a family friend that I started taking lessons with at a very young age, but pretty quickly discovered that we were going to have to make some regular trips somewhere to accommodate some more training. So for a long time, until I was about 10, I traveled to Vernon. And then when I was about 10, we moved to New Denver, moved to the big city, you know? And from there, we started making our trips to Nelson, where I started taking lessons with Wendy Herbison and played in what was the youth orchestra there for some time, and youth choir and all that kind of stuff. So that was a really, influential and important part of my learning. And then I started, I've always really been into fiddle music. So I was kind of rebelling against the classical training, maybe just a little bit. And so I started, getting really interested in that. And I had an opportunity to move back east. So I moved to Charlottetown. Did a little stint at the Gaelic College there, started teaching and really wanting just to learn about fiddle. Well, the funny thing was that I started taking classical lessons and ended up being hired to play in the symphony there, which was not my goal in the first place, but I did end up doing some good fiddling stuff there and furthered my classical kind of studies and that too. And then, I've just carried on teaching. I guess what brought me into the symphony was you. And so it was just, I think it's been a fabulous opportunity for me. I feel so blessed to be able to play with the level of musicians that are coming out of other places to play with us. And I just truly feel lucky to be part of the whole thing. It's always an adventure, but it's been super great.
And so, you're a pretty active teacher. I'd say you're one of the busiest violin teachers in the Castlegar area. How do you see the symphony and its role sort of in that community? Certainly we play in Trail and Nelson. We try to get out to the West Kootenays as much as we can. How do you see that interaction working with your students and with your community there?
Right. Well, I think that the symphony brings culture and vibrancy to these small towns that need it. Not everybody gets the opportunity, especially with stuff like this pandemic going on, especially to travel and get out and go see these things in other places. So we certainly are lucky to have that kind of a thing close to home. One thing that I always appreciated about my time in the symphony is this business where you do an open rehearsal. And I always thought that was really great for the kids, especially, I think a lot of people can't afford stuff too. So even if that kind of thing is open for people so that everybody has an opportunity to see that. I know that when my daughter is able to be at any performance like that, she's singing the songs and totally inspired by the whole experience, for weeks and weeks afterwards. So I think it's so important, and we're lucky to have it.
Well, that's good to hear. Okay, well, to show us a little bit of that Celtic-y side of yours, Brie, you've prepared a recording for us. What are we about to hear?
Yes, I'm so excited to share some Celtic music. It's going to be a little medley of a tune called The Flowers of Edinburgh and Big John McNeil.
Exciting. Here we go. Well, that was exciting. And now we're going to talk with Megan Bibby, our past student violinist from Creston. How are you doing, Megan?
Very well, thanks.
It's great to see you after quite some time. And of course, you've been living in Victoria now. This is your second year there, is that right?
Yes, it's really nice. I really like the city of Victoria. It's a really beautiful place and not too overwhelming for a small town girl.
Yeah. And so you learned violin, I'm assuming at a pretty young age. You want to just tell us a little bit about your musical adventure growing up in Creston?
Sure, yeah. Well, I started violin when I was 6, and that happened after attending a Creston Fiddlers concert. I was just determined after that concert. I told my mom, I really want to play the violin. And so very shortly after, I was signed up for lessons, and yeah, I just really focused on that. I was already Highland dancing a lot. I started that when I was 3, so I was very busy, and that's what switched me into homeschooling so that I could keep up dance and music. And yeah, I really loved the fiddle music, loved playing fast. As I improved a little bit, I was working on classical music, trying to do some RCM exams. And yeah, in my teenage years, I realized I was starting to get pretty serious about music, and I found a really good teacher in Spokane. I studied with Jason Moody for 4 years, and he helped me prepare for the auditions for UVic.
What was that like traveling? Were you traveling down to Spokane from Creston every week, or what was that menu like?
We started with online lessons, and the traveling to Spokane was about every month or two, whenever we could make a trip, and we'd try to get a long lesson out of that trip. I'm glad that I was able to be at an advanced enough level to pick up what I needed to, but anytime I went down to Spokane for a lesson, that it was so much more than I realized. Like you just feed off of in-person lessons so much.
All right. So now you're at UVic. You've spent a year, almost 2 years there now. What has that been like? What sort of experiences have you had learning violin there?
I would say I'm very glad that I got at least one normal year to start off with, even though it ended a bit surprisingly with the situation right now. The musician student schedule is very busy, and I think I'm mentally prepared for that, but the amount of practice that you're expected to get in and the homework, and it's about 5 hours of orchestra rehearsal every week. The courses are they were pretty easy in first year for me because I did a little bit of preparation, but if you want to focus more on your musical development, I find it's a little bit harder to balance. In my first year, I was really concerned about my grades and being a really, really good student in every corner. And then I realized that I wasn't accomplishing everything I wanted to on my violin by being so meticulous with all my assignments. So I had to learn a little bit about slacking.
Yeah. Well, when there's a good reason for it, I guess it's a different thing. Okay, wonderful. So you have prepared a solo piece for us. What are we about to hear?
It's Perpetuum Mobile by Otakar Novacek. I hope I'm saying that right. And I actually have a very personal reason why I started learning this piece. When I played at provincials in 2019, I was given some comments from the adjudication about being good at playing slowly, but not being clean and perfect at a fast tempo. And that really hit me hard. I was labeled an adagio player. So I opened up about this to my violin teacher because it was affecting me. I wanted to know that I can play something quick and clean and energetic. And she suggested this piece, and it's been a really fun piece for me to learn this year.
That was fantastic. So now we're going to talk as a group about the uniqueness of coming to play in a symphony orchestra. The amount of work and individuality that comes together when we create a symphony. You've got anywhere from 40 to 80 plus, even more, with larger orchestras, individuals all coming together, different walks of life. Everybody's coming to the symphony from their own perspective, and they're bringing their own experiences and they're bringing their own styles. And the whole job that we have is to blend together and create something together that's more than the sum of all of our parts. Sophia, what's that like for you, given your background and given what you do in your life? When you come to the symphony, what sort of experience is that for you?
Well, symphony is it's kind of my secret escape. It's like my secret life. I get to escape a little bit. I'm always amazed because there's a lot of preparation that goes into a symphony weekend. And I do love arriving and meeting with the cello section and all of the other musicians as well. Like you say, working towards something that's greater than than each of us individually. Yeah, it's always an amazing experience.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, for you, Brie, as you know, a teacher, and I think you're definitely well known around these parts as being sort of a Celtic fiddler, a big part of that. And so, what's that like for you, sort of changing your hat to come into the symphony and play this classical music and play it in a certain way, and sort of have to blend in with a section of classical players? What's that like for you?
Well, I find that, let me just start by saying that any project that the symphony does has always been a source of growth and keeps me sharp. And I'm grateful for every opportunity. But I do get just a little more excited when there's some Celtic world folk music influence going on as part of the whole experience. You know, like when we had like Lizzie Hoyt or the Sultans of String or any of that going on, that is so much fun for me. So I do get really excited about those ones. But having said that, you know, it has been challenging for me. Some of the material has been really challenging. And it's like, I'm always astonished when I like listen to something and then I practice at home and then we put it all together. It's like, it seems like three different experiences completely.
For sure. And for you, Megan, of course, now that you're in university, you know, your life is music. Your life is these ensembles that you play in. But for when you were growing up in Creston and playing with us in the latter years of your time there, what was it like as a student, you know, having your own things to work on, your schooling and everything else, and then have this intense weekend of music at a high level? What was that like for you?
It was amazing. I loved it so much. I am so grateful for the time that I had to play with the Symphony of the Kootenays. It was like being backstage with celebrities in my eyes. It's just it's amazing that I could be a part of that powerful source that was coming out of all the instruments and into the audience. And I actually prefer being in the middle of it all rather than hearing it from the other direction sometimes, because it's just it like you feel it through your whole body. The difference between like getting to play with the Symphony of the Kootenays and then going and playing with the UVic orchestra is that I was really spoiled getting to play with all the really high, like everyone is high level at UVic. But it takes so much longer for us to get a performance ready. And the Symphony of the Kootenays, you just whips it up in a weekend. And everyone's like working so hard. But
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it too for the symphony. We've spoken about this in previous episodes, just the amount of preparation that goes in. For you as a student player, obviously you needed to practice like everybody else, but you also had to learn a lot of the material you'd never played, most of it probably never played before.
yeah.
So what was that like? Like when a weekend was coming up, would you like, was that all you would focus on for that time?
Yeah, I as soon as I got the music, I was doing my best at figuring out what I could on my own. But a really great help was actually my stand buddy here, Brie. I could be comfortable asking her anything if I wasn't sure. I think I learned Col Legno at at Symphony of the Kootenays, just like little details in the music that I just didn't realize were a part of it. So
Yeah, we really think that that's a big part of engaging students, is not to just plunk them in the orchestra and say, have at it, good luck, is to put them with someone that we know will mentor them. And Sophia, how would you say we could reach out and find community players like yourself, high level community players that might be interested in playing with the orchestra?
Those musicians in the community are going to be attracted to coming to performances that the symphony puts on, and in that way getting to familiarize themselves with the organization, so to speak. I know before I ever played with Symphony of the Kootenays, I was an audience member first.
So we're going to now hear the second movement from the Haydn's London Trio that we began our show with. This is in a lovely andante. Oh, that was lovely. And now we're going to hear another very beautiful and lyrical piece. Sophia, what are we about to listen to?
Well, this is one of my favorites. It's Mozart's Dona Nobis Pacem, and we're playing it as a three-part canon. So with the cello on the bottom, with violins coming in afterwards. I'm excited about this one.
Oh, that was beautiful. And now to wrap up the show, Brie, what are we about to hear?
Well, we're going to start with a more swinging tune. It's called The Junk Man. And then we're going to finish off with a Celtic air called She Begged She More.
Very exciting. Here we go. That was truly wonderful, and thanks again to our guests for joining us today. Well, that wraps up this episode, but the conversation will keep going over in our Zoom room, where we'll hear from you and get to chat with our guests. Just hit that link in the description and head on over. Just a reminder to support our episodes by clicking that like button below and subscribe. Also share this video with your friends and family through social media so we can grow our community and everyone get to know our orchestra even better. Also, check out our website, sotk.ca, for more information about the Symphony and a listing of Green Room episodes. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be back with another episode featuring 2 more local Kootenai-based players, our 2 percussion section leaders, Robin Clegg and Sven Haid, to talk about what it's like to juggle all those instruments and keep the percussion section running smoothly. That's May 22nd at 7:30 Mountain and 6:30 Pacific, right here in the Green Room.